Professor Mattia Landoni, welcome to CEIBS.
Thank you.
This is a chance for a new faculty to introduce themselves to the CEIBS community, to let people know about research, their backgrounds, and anything they'd like the wonderful, huge CEIBS community out there to know. Go back to the beginning then. So obviously you're originally from Italy. Can you tell me about early life? Where are you from in Italy exactly, and how did you come to CEIBS?
So I grew up in the north-west of Italy. I think everyone who's watched Ocean's 11 knows where Lake Como is. My dad used to wake up on Sunday mornings and say, "Oh, let's go to the lake today." We would drive half an hour and be on Lake Como and take a stroll, and I took that for granted. I grew up seeing rice paddies, like many people in China. People think about Italy, they think pizza, pasta, wheat, right? Like in the north of China. But northwestern Italy is famous for its rice. You might have tried risotto if you've ever been in an Italian restaurant.
I was about to say risotto is what comes to my mind when
that's exactly where I come
think
from.
about Italian rice.
So how did I come to CEIBS? Well, I took a 20-year detour in the United States of America.
You had it planned out from the start, obviously.
Of course. Well, you know, it went like this. I was close to graduating from college in Milan, and I did not really have a plan, as some young Italians do. But I did fall in love with this girl from Shanghai. And then I said, look, I got this scholarship to go to the United States. You can either marry me or we can break up. And then as a true economist, I wasn't an economist yet, but I was already clearly going to be one. I said, look, you have nothing to lose because if you try and it goes well, we're going to be happy for a long, long time together. And if you try and it doesn't go well, worst case, you're going to be 27 and divorced, which is much better than being 37 and divorced. She said, this makes sense, let's marry. So she came with me to the United States for 20 years. But all along during these 20 years, I was scheming to find a way to go home, which would have been either finding a good job in Milan or a good job in Shanghai. And Shanghai was the one that happened.
Did you start to develop an interest in Chinese culture through your wife at that time, or did you just simply not think about it?
No, it went quite the opposite way. One of my main interests is languages, and the Chinese language is so fascinating, so unique, and so I wanted to learn a bit more about it. I said, I'm going to do an internship in China. I interned at the Italian consulate in Guangzhou, which is where I decided I did not want to be a diplomat at all. In preparing for this internship, I said I need to hang out with some Chinese people in Milan too, so I know what I'm going to get myself into. And so that's how I ran into her.
So you did the internship in the Italian consulate in Guangzhou, and after that, what was your next step? You went back to Italy, or did you start your career in the US at that time?
Yeah, that was my third year of college, so I still had to come back to my senior year, graduate. So I was so impressed by some things I saw when I went to Guangzhou that I decided to write my senior thesis on internal migration in China.
Wow. What things did you see which impressed you so much?
I was in the Tianhe district, which is a very fancy district with very big, tall buildings. You go downstairs, right? There was this gentleman pulling a hand cart collecting recyclables. I thought that the income of this person must be 1/100th of the people I meet in the elevator just a minute ago. Such a big difference. I said, where does this person come from? Why is he here? And then I started learning about the big population movements from the countryside to the cities and the hukou system and all these things. And I was really lucky to run into a professor, at that time the only available population science professor in all of Bocconi. I knocked at his door, I said, I have this idea, what can I write? And he said, maybe you can make a projection how these population movements, if they continue the way they are, will affect the sustainability of the Chinese pension system. I think I did a little too good on this thesis. He became convinced that I couldn't do anything else but research and teaching. He condemned me to a life away from a lucrative finance career and into academia by writing some very nice letters of recommendation and telling me, Mattia, I think this is the right thing for you to do.
It seemed that he wasn't that successful in keeping you out of finance, because I know that you had a spell working for the Federal Reserve in Boston, was that right?
Yes.
How did you land that position?
The big question for me was, do I want to be an academic or do I want to be in policy? In my family, many people are either academics or civil servants. And so it must be a DNA thing, I don't know. If I'm an economist, I can do a little bit of both. And so I have done a little bit of both. I've been in a business school for 6 years after grad school. Then I say, now I want to do a bit of policy, and I worked for 5 years at the Federal Reserve as an economist. The type of research I do is relatively similar. The research at the Federal Reserve was more practical. Often there will be, the president has a question, you have to answer the question in 24 hours and then give a briefing, right? So that doesn't happen in academia. But you also have time to do the more long-term projects, ask the bigger questions and take a bit more time to see if we can provide some good insight. If you are at the Federal Reserve as a government economist, one of the few side jobs that they encourage you to do is to teach. So I ended up also teaching. While I was at the Boston Fed, I was also teaching at Harvard on the side as a little side gig. In the end, my life wasn't very different. Right. When I was in academia, the research I was doing was always policy relevant as well. I like questions that are practical. Sometimes there are questions that affect the business. Sometimes there are questions that affect the business of government, if you think of it just as another business. Then policy-oriented research is very similar to business-oriented research.
So you went from academia to the States, working for the Federal Reserve, but you find yourself back in academia again. So how do you explain making the transition twice?
So part of it, as I said before, is that I was scheming to find a job that would take our family home. Since I end up doing the same things anyway, I may as well be in a school. I've known CEIBS for a really long time, and I've always wanted to work here. It looked fantastic from day one. It started because somebody knew that I was coming to see my wife's family, which is a 5-minute drive from here. And they said, oh, you really have to meet my friends at CEIBS. So they introduced me to Professor Frank Yu and then a few other people. And I immediately understood that the level of the students was really high, which is very important, right? It's really satisfying to teach students that can rise to the challenge. And then there is the component that it is a joint venture between the Chinese government and the European Union. So I would be here and get to serve the people at the same time. So I have it all essentially at this point. And so last summer I was in Hawaii at a conference, and there was another CEIBS professor, Professor Wang Renxuan, who, he was presenting at the same conference his research, and somebody introduced us. And Professor Wang started selling me really hard on CEIBS. And I was telling him, I don't need you to sell me so hard. I really like it already. and so he said, no, I will try to get you a talk so you're on the radar. He did that. He tried to organize a talk for me. The talk went well. I gave a trial teaching that also went well. And then I got an offer.
So how does it feel like now that you're actually here?
It feels great. Everything's perfect.
How does your wife feel to get home eventually?
She's very happy. Initially I told her that a year ago, right after this trip in Hawaii, I said, this might actually happen, and she said, are you sure? That's a big move. And she's from here, right? But we had put some pretty deep roots down in the United States. The boy's first language is English. And so initially she was a little scared at the idea, but I just had to wait. She had to grow into the idea of going home. And then she was really excited, and now she's really, really happy to be here.
So you have a son?
I have 2 boys.
2 boys.
They're both in Concordia. They like their school very much. We really like that I get to work to school on foot, and they go to school on foot.
What are your expectations or hopes for your time at CEIBS?
CEIBS is famous for having world-class teaching, and the CEIBS students are famous for being correctly demanding of their teachers. I'm looking forward to meet them.
So what did Wang Renxuan, what did he tell you about the students, Professor Wang?
Well, he told me about them as being, hardworking and generally speaking, high-powered individuals. Many of them are executives. So he was talking to me about the alumni network, the kind of speakers that he can summon into the classroom so easily. They need to get the impression that you understand not just the subject matter, but how the subject matter applies to China in particular and to Asia, at least as well as they do, which is, of course, for somebody like me, probably the hardest part. I have been always teaching well, but you have to adapt to the local, what the local students demand. The professors here don't just teach, they organize a lot of stuff. And so I want to also contribute to that. On the research side, I just want to continue to do what I've been doing, to do research on finance at the edge between asset pricing and corporate finance. It's about how firms or securities issuers structure their securities to maximize the degree to which investors would like those securities, and so to maximize the price that investors will pay. And so I have written papers about these things, including about how government issuers structure their bonds to maximize the price they receive. This is an example of policy relevant research. I hope I can do something that is policy relevant here. There are many levels of government here, like in the United States. There is the local government, the national government, and they all have, I'm sure, lots of questions. And initially I will just start by listening and see what's interesting to them, and hopefully I can say something intelligent over time. On the one hand, I understand, I can tell the local government issuer how best to structure your bond to fetch the maximum price for the investors, but the same research is useful to the investor. Say, what kind of government bonds should I be looking for in the market to maximize my returns? In this case, in the case of the paper I wrote, was my after-tax returns. I know that this research that is policy relevant is also relevant to businesses. I remember that there was a student once that emailed me and say, "Professor, your paper was passed around the office today," and they were working at some big bank on the bond trading desk. So I hope to keep doing something like that.
So you kind of answered one of my questions, which was to ask you, give some examples of your research or your teaching which has had like a real world impact. I don't know if you can expand on that, or...
This is probably my highest contribution to human culture. Once the head of policy at BlackRock, the US asset management giant, told me, "Mattia, your paper on the taxation of retirement accounts has essentially contributed to changing the debate on retirement accounts." Oh, that felt so nice.
Job satisfaction.
I could also give you an example from something that the opposite end, something really humble that actually made a big impact. As a finance teacher, I teach discounted cash flow, right? And so there is this example that I always use with my students that is apparently useless, but it's very entertaining, and then it turns out to also be very useful. In the United States, there is this lottery called the Powerball. There is a jackpot that is advertised there are billboards all over the country on the highways. And so the billboard will say, the jackpot this week is $1 billion, right? You drive and say, "Okay, 1 billion, what does it really mean?" They don't give you a $1 billion in cash if you win. They give you 30 payments once a year, 30 annual payments that grow at a rate of 5%. So every payment is 5% bigger than the previous payment. And the sum of these 30 payments is $1 billion. Or you can choose the lump sum option, but it is a lot smaller.
Right.
And to decide which one you want, which will never happen to any one of us, that's why it's an apparently useless example, how much is the first payment? And if you start doing the math using what I teach you in the discounted cash flow class, it turns out to be comically difficult. It's one of the most opaque pieces of information that, I thought I knew, and now I'm about to give up because it's not worth my time, right? I get my students to bang their head against this apparently useless problem, but they're entertained, so they will still do it, right? And then years later, they come to me and they say, "Professor, maybe investment bankers, and they're at the office. I'm the only one who can solve the difficult discounted cash flow problems because you made me do this kind of exercises," right? And so I actually probably have contributed to several investment banking pitch decks so that the analyst could provide a more sophisticated analysis to the client in various big US investment banks.
So bringing things back a little bit to where we started talking about your personal background, at CEIBS we always like to do some very thorough research into our interview subjects. And we did find that you have a very interesting website where you have game theory, coding, and also some recipes. So it seems that you're a culinary expert, or you're interested in cooking. Is that the case?
I really love cooking. It's one of the things that my wife and I share. She's a great cook. I really love cooking. I will not say that I'm a great cook. Once I showed her once how to make pasta bolognese, and the next time she made it better than me. But what I am, and I will now do some self-promotion, I am an excellent writer.
Wow.
That's why you like my recipes so much. The third thing is that I'm very forgetful, right? And so I have to really write down everything. And if I write something down, I have to write it really well. So then I write some really good recipes, it turns out. I got that a lot over the years.
Right. So these recipes you can invent yourself, or?
No. So most of them come from my dad. I think every generation since the Middle Ages has better recipes than the previous generation. And in spite of that, there is still so much that is unsaid. Yeah. The transmitter takes for granted and the receiver doesn't know, right? Which is all teaching, right? We academics should think about recipes and say, I'm probably doing the same in my own teaching, right? And all that stuff that you know is in the background of your head while you explain things to other people, while you write, while you speak. And so
it's easy to forget such things.
Right.
Because you're not consciously thinking of it.
Yes. Yeah. It automatically contributes to your understanding of the things. So the things you say sound perfectly clear, right? But they don't necessarily sound clear to the other person. And you say, how can I escape the cage of my own knowledge so that I can make myself dumb on purpose so that then I can explain very well and very clearly, and people will clearly, certainly understand what I mean. And there's a bit of Zen in the art of teaching, I guess. Does that make sense?
It does, absolutely. Yeah. And talking about escaping cages, I mean, what do you do at the weekend? In your free time? Although you're familiar with Shanghai, I guess you're new to actually living here. So what have you found entertainment-wise, or hobbies, or family time?
I wish you could ask me again in 3 months, because I haven't had a lot of time. Right. But we definitely did go to a lot of restaurants already. We don't just like to cook at home, we also like to eat. We like all kinds of racket sports. Unlike my dad, who would say, let's go stroll on the lakeside, we say, let's go play tennis. Let's go play ping pong. Let's go play badminton. You're Scottish?
Yes.
Do you know real tennis or court tennis?
I heard of court tennis. I don't know the details if it's different or.
That's the thing that Henry VIII used to call tennis.
Right. Wow.
And
I didn't know about that, actually.
It is a fantastic sport, and as far as I know, there are no courts in Asia. There are probably 45 courts in the entire world. Half of them are in Britain. One of them is in Scotland, the only open-air court in the world. And there is one in Boston. I didn't expect to
come here learning new things about Scotland. I'm very impressed. Very impressed.
Yes, so one day in Boston, I entered this place called the Tennis and Racket Club, and it blew my mind because I learned the existence of this sport that I never seen before, which is the ancestor of modern tennis. And so I've played that too. One thing that Shanghai should have is a court tennis club. One day I will maybe found the Shanghai Tennis and Racket Club.
It sounds like a pretty solid business plan. Mattia, so it's been really fascinating. Thank you for sharing all your information. Is there anything you want to say to the CEIBS community?
This is a fantastic school. I just arrived, so I don't pretend to understand how it works, but whatever it is that you all are doing, keep doing it. I'm looking forward to meet the students in particular in the classroom, and I'm looking forward to many years of being around campus with my colleagues and many generations of students.
Thanks very much. That's excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.